So this right here is Sony's most hated camera by so many people, including myself. And this is the Sony FX2. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would you buy a camera that you don't like? Well, this camera is about a year old now. And when I first started looking at it, because I was thinking about getting it as a second camera body, but so many of the reviews and so many of the videos that I was watching of people speaking about this camera were really negative. A lot of people were complaining about it, and more people were expecting the Sony A7S IV or even a Sony FX3 II. But Sony decided to release this, and it really pissed everybody off, again, including myself, because I've been waiting for the S4. But when I started watching videos in the last few months about this camera, so many people started talking about how once they experienced this camera, it was a complete game changer for them. Now, a little disclosure about me. I am a videographer and I've been a videographer in Austin, Texas for about 5 years now. And my main camera has been the Sony A7S III. And I used to have the Sony A7C, and I would use these two back to back for all my event shooting, my testimonials, anything that had to do with restaurants, resorts, all that kind of stuff. And most recently, I realized that the Sony A7C is kind of weighing me down, so I decided to upgrade to the Sony FX2, which prompted me to look at a lot of reviews on this camera. And it's funny because, like I said, when I saw the reviews on this about a year ago, so many people were talking down about it, but they never really used it. This was just kind of based off of the specs and other things that other people were saying, and they just began to talk so much trash about this camera that it prevented a lot of people, like myself, from buying it. But like I said, in the last recent weeks, I did a lot of research and ended up realizing this was a camera that definitely fitted everything that I needed. It is a cinema camera, which pairs really well with my Sony A7S III and matching that footage together. But this is also a 33 megapixel camera, so I'm able to get some beautiful, beautiful photos. And since I bought it, I've already filmed two events with it. One of them being with Garrison Brothers, which is a whiskey distillery company out here in Texas, out in High Texas. And I filmed one of their whiskey release events. And again, as always, people shut up. Amazing whiskey, amazing company. And I got to use this on that shoot, which is great because at Garrison Brothers, everything was outside. It was during the morning, so there was so much harsh light, which allowed me to see how this works with that harsh light using ND filters, photography, and videography. And it did a phenomenal job. The client loved the work, they loved the videos. And to me, I was really impressed about the quality that this camera was getting out. Now, another event that I was filming was a beat sessions that was going on yesterday at Spokesman Coffee, which is a place here in Austin, Texas. And the difference between that and Garrison Brothers is that Spokesman was an indoor event at night, super low light. And again, it allowed me to see what this camera could do in low light situations, videography, photography, and how I could move with it. And it performed phenomenally well. Again, I was impressed by it because everything that I was hearing from other people and everything that I was experiencing in the internet when this first came out was like, this camera sucks, you shouldn't buy it, just wait it out. And I've been waiting. I've been waiting for Sony to drop a new camera body. I've been waiting for Sony to give me my A7S IV or even an FX2. But when I decided to trade in the A7C for this, I didn't know what else to pick. I was gonna get the A7 V, but just a lot of the research I was doing, I didn't know if that was a camera that I needed as a second shooter. And so again, as I was doing more deep dive and digging, it just hit me right in the face that this is the camera that I needed. But again, based on everybody else's views, I didn't want to get it. Which for me, as the last few days has gone on, and I've been recommending this camera to so many people, it's kind of served almost as a metaphor for my life in general. Now, for those who don't know, I was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas, and I was there until I was 29 years old. And once I was about to turn 30, it kind of smacked me in the face of like either you're going to stay in your hometown and you're just going to be here and work the jobs that you're working and just be somebody who's working all the time and not really enjoying life because that's where I was in that point of life. Or I could move out of my hometown, which for me was something that I needed because at the time I felt like I couldn't escape people's ideas of me, people's perceptions of me, and even my own perceptions of myself. being in my hometown just kind of brought all these memories of the life that I used to live, the things that I used to do, and the person that I used to be. And even though it wasn't weighing me down in the front of my mind, it definitely was doing it subconsciously. So at 29, I found myself working nonstop. I was literally working about 18 hours a day. I had really no friends in my life. I had alienated myself from so many people. I was depressed and I was unhappy. And I thought to myself, hey, what's the point of surviving in Brownsville if you're not going to be happy, if you're not going to be doing what you love, and if you're going to be sabotaging yourself at every step of the way? And so what I decided to do was move somewhere that I think would have allowed me more freedom and more wiggle room to find out who I was and to delve more into the things that I wanted to do, which again, Austin, Texas was 6 hours away. And it made me just realize, like, yo, I would rather try and make it in Austin and last a year, maybe 2 years, and then come back with some experience, come back with maybe like this new aroma or something like that, right? Fast forward a little over 10 years later, and the person who I was that moved to Austin, Texas, timid, scared, uh, doubting himself, all those things is no longer there. I feel like a whole new person, not just from the careers that I left behind and the career that I'm in now, but just in and of myself. I feel like the person who I am now would not recognize the person who I was then. And the person I was then would look at the person I am now and probably think to themselves, like, how? Like, how did you do this? Like, what did you do to get there? And now that I'm going to be 40 in the next 40 days, I really wanted to just put together a lot of the lessons that I learned in the last 10 years. Because from all the way until about 29, almost 30 years old, I felt like I was not really doing much with my life. I felt like a loser. I felt like I wasn't contributing to anything, and I just felt like a waste of space. And little by little, as I began to ask myself if this is the life I wanted, I kept telling myself no. Like, I don't want to just be working all the time, and I don't want to be working minimum wage, and I don't want to be in my hometown with people I don't like and people who don't like me. And there's just, like I said, it was just this big downer in my life. So in the next 40 days, I will be 40 years old, leaving my 30s behind. And so before I do that, I want to record some videos just unloading a lot of the knowledge that I gained in my 30s, because to some of you, you may be in the same spot that I was in then, or you're maybe in a plateau or in a dry space right now, and you just need a little bit of encouragement. You need a little bit of push to get you where you want to go. And I hope in the next 40 days, you stick it along with me, or I share this kind of knowledge of how I went from being someone who really wasn't much to somebody who can afford all these cameras and all these computers and just everything that I have now. Like I said, I'm surprised at times when I step back and I look at my life, and I'm so thankful that I get to live the life that I live now because I'm able to invest in myself, in my health, in my wife, in my kids. I get to spend time with them. We get to travel together. Like I said, the life that I never thought I could have, I now live. And it really is surreal. Now, one of the beliefs that I had for myself that I wanted to leave behind in Brownsville was the belief that I was just a worker bee. Um, for my entire life, I always felt like a creative. I was always writing poetry, I was drawing, I was sketching, I was painting, I was b-boying, I was beatboxing, I was emceeing, I was doing graffiti. Like, again, I wasn't the best person, but I would do a lot of these things. I was a great skateboarder at one point. And as I started growing up, I felt like work was more important than fun. I feel like work is what you should be defined as, right? I feel like you need to find a job, you stay with that job, you get your 401k, and you do all the things, right? You go to college, you do all these things that make you out to be a person who is worthy of living in a sense, or at least that's the way I saw it. And at the time, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like I was worthy of being alive. I didn't feel like I was worthy of anything. And being at that point in my life really made me realize, like, well, either one, you can continue to be this miserable, or take a chance on yourself. And so I did. Now, that hard work mentality didn't go away immediately when I moved to Austin, and I think it's still in me right now, right? I wake up at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning every day to work out and do all the things I need to do to be able to have more time to spend with my wife, my kids, and my clients as well. But I remember being the type of person who would sacrifice sleep over and over again. And I would sleep anywhere from maybe 1 or 2 hours a day to maybe 4 hours if I was lucky, because I would just be working all the time. And what I ended up realizing was the reason I was working so hard, it was because I was really running away from myself. I didn't like the person I was looking at in the mirror. I didn't like being alone with my thoughts. And so I thought to myself, hey, if I'm working all the time, if I'm busy all the time, if I don't have time to self-reflect and all that kind of stuff, well then I'm not going to be able to see my flaws. I won't be able to look at my errors and all that kind of stuff. And in the long run, I thought, hey, who cares? Like I can't change. I'm already going to be 30 and I'm stuck in my ways. But at that time specifically, that's when I also started reading one of my favorite authors, which is C.S. Lewis. And there was a quote that he had that is still one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is, "You're never too old to dream new dreams." And what that ended up doing was giving me the courage or the fuel to step out in faith and just say, hey, if you fail in Austin, at least you tried. At least you took a chance. At least you put in the effort to see if you could do it. And to me at the time, that was enough. So fast forward, moving to Austin, I was a barista at Starbucks, and then I quickly left that job and worked at Mozart's Coffee, which is one of the best coffee roasters here in Austin. They've been around for decades. And the goal was to become a coffee roaster, but I had no experience. And so I gave myself 5 years to be a coffee roaster because I thought, hey, I got to get in the shop. I got to learn the lingo. I got to do this. I got to do that. So, hey, let's be realistic. If it takes you 5 years, at least that's 5 years you're in Austin and you're working for this goal. And through hard work, through dedication, through effort and sweat, and the kind of person I am, I was able to become their head roaster in a little over a year. And by doing that, it meant I was there all the time as a roaster, as a barista, as a manager, and so many other positions. And because I started making more money, I was able to invest in my very first camera, which was the Sony A5100. And so from then on, I just started documenting my process as a coffee roaster, being around Austin, and just doing a lot of the things that I do. But at the time, I was working way too much to even think about being a videographer, or even think about being a photographer. For me, it was just a way of documenting what my life was like at that point. And of course, social media was just kind of rolling out at this point. Instagram was a thing, Facebook, MySpace had already died. YouTube was still chugging along and doing its thing. So I started doing YouTube videos and posting stuff on Instagram, and little by little, people began to see my work and they would compliment me. And within 3 years, I left my coffee roasting position and pursued a career in videography. Now, the main reason that I left coffee for cameras was because somebody was willing to pay for me to document their process and their growth in their business. And they saw what I was doing in my Instagram and just kind of capturing this content of my life and the things that I was doing. And they liked it so much that they were like, hey, would you come on board, learn social media, and make our account grow and make it popular so that we can start marketing and doing more things with our Instagram? Which I said, of course. Like, I wasn't even really 2 years in to being a photographer and videography. I was still editing things on iMovie, which, man, that's a whole different story. And so when I was working with this company between late 2018, the majority of 2019, I was learning at the same time as I was working. So I was learning how to do better videos. I was learning how to do better photos. I was learning how to fly a drone. I was learning how to do all these things. And then the pandemic hit and the world shut down. So now me and my new wife are sitting in our apartment trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Should we go stay with family in Houston, Brownsville? Do we just sell everything we have and try to make ends meet until money runs out or the economy opens up? And we were just so insecure about what was going to happen. And at this point, I was rarely sleeping. I was learning Premiere Pro. I was learning Lightroom. I was learning so much where I thought to myself, you know what? I know some people who need video work. I've been hired by some people here and there in Austin to do video and photo work. Let me just tap in and try to make this a thing. So what I decided to do was invest in the Mavic Air 2S because drone photography and drone videography at the time were not as popular as they are now. And I knew that if I was able to get my foot into the door early enough, that I would be able to make some splash to bring some attention to myself. And so what we ended up doing was starting our business, Meek Monster Media, during the pandemic, which in hindsight could have been crazy. A lot of people didn't do that, right? A lot of people were waiting on government assistance, were, going back to their jobs. And what I ended up realizing was almost the same thing I realized when I was moving from Brownsville to Austin, which was what you need to do is take a chance on yourself. Every time I bet on myself, I end up becoming better as a person, but at the same time, we end up becoming better as a whole, especially now with my wife and my two kids. Like, I feel like that has motivated me to pursue more, to go harder, to be the person that I've always wanted to be. And like I said, now getting closer to 40, it's also making me realize I don't have that much time to do it, right? When you think about it realistically, I have a few good 20, 30 years in me until I probably won't be able to do some of the things that I plan on doing. And so what I ended up doing this last couple of years was turning our videography business into a videography agency where we go with clients, build retainers, do their marketing, build their websites, and do more than just taking photos or making videos. And the way that I did that was by coming up with a strategy that I knew my clients wanted, that I knew my audience wanted. And by doing that, it just opened up a much wider door for me. And now I'm able to hire other videographers, other photographers, and invest more in my creativity. Which again, when I think about that, it's stunning. It's surprising to me because I never saw myself as a leader. I never saw myself as somebody who could run their own business. From what I know, there wasn't at the time anybody in my family that was running their own business. So if they couldn't do it, what gave me the audacity to attempt it? And so now leaving my 30s and going into my 40s, I'm looking at the next 10 years of how do I get myself ready for my 50s, right? In the next 10 years, my kids are going to be teenagers. In the next 10 years, my wife and I are going to be, growing older together. We're going to be doing a lot of more things together. And us as a family unit, we're going to change in the next 10 years. Maybe, hopefully, we'll grow tighter. And that's like my goal as a father is to, build a tight knit group here at home. But if I want to do that, I need to look at my 30s and the things that I did right and the things that I did wrong and begin to dissect that and say, what do I need to do to continue to move us forward as a company, as a family, as a unit? And that's what I want to use the next 40 days for. It isn't just to give knowledge and experience to you guys, but it's also to hear from y'all. Like, I'm sure there's people who are going to be watching this video who are maybe in their 40s, mid 40s, maybe late 40s, 50s, 60s. And so what's some knowledge that you have that you think I can benefit from, right? Like, what are some things that you learned in your 40s, in your 50s, maybe even in your 30s that helped you get where you wanted to go in life? Like I said, being able to go into a camera shop and buy a brand new camera, a brand new lens, being able to go to the Apple store, buy a brand new laptop and invest in our business, right? It's not even like we're buying things to buy new things. This is what's going to help our business grow. We need a laptop because we're traveling a lot, for work, and we need a laptop that's going to be able to have me edit, reply to emails, use AI, use all these things that I do for our business. And I can't do it if I'm stuck at home with a desktop because I need to travel for work so often. So we need to invest in a laptop. Or, hey, yeah, my Sony A7S III, dope camera, I love it. But a lot of the work that I do is photography as well. And so how do I get better photos and how do I become a better photographer and how do I give my clients a better quality image? Well, invest in better gear, right? Not just in the camera body, but in the lenses and all that kind of stuff. And just like the Sony FX2, when so many people were talking crap about it, when so many people were giving it bad reviews without even using it, without even experiencing it, just because other people were saying something or just because they were reading bad reviews or looking at specs that they didn't even know how these specs were going to come in handy when they're actually on the job filming, I felt like that was me so much of my life. Like, I would listen to what other people would say about me or what I thought other people were thinking about me just by facial expressions or whatever it was. And I would talk down to myself, or I would allow other people to talk down about me. And I believed that. Like, I thought they were right. I thought they were being honest, especially when it would come from adults, especially when it would coming from grown-ups and people who you would admire thought, hey, you would be honest with me. And then they tell you bad things about yourself and they talk down about you and they ridicule you or they speak down on your character. When that happens so much, you tend to believe it until you go out, you put in the effort, and you bet on yourself. You see what you can do. How much are you willing to put in? How much are you willing to grind? How much are you willing to fight? How much are you willing to see whether or not you can actually pull it off? And like I said, I'm not saying that we are the wealthiest people in the world. I'm not saying that we're famous. I'm not saying any of these things. But what I am saying is that I have a healthy relationship with myself. I have a healthy relationship with my wife. I have a healthy relationship with my kids, with my parents, and with my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and with my church community, and with so many people around me. Like, I have friends. I'm a joyful person. To me, that is way more wealth than what could ever be in a bank account. Because I know people who have a lot of money and are just dead inside and are unhappy and are miserable and don't want to experience life. And it's funny because I remember being there in life and I had nothing and I had every reason to feel that way. And so when I look at somebody who has everything I think I want and they're just as miserable as I was then, I end up realizing it isn't about the monetary things that we have. It isn't about the camera. It isn't about the gear. It isn't about the bank account. It's about what's in here. It's about what's in here, right? It's about who do you believe that you are? And to me, having this self-confidence, having this relationship with myself where I can go through my life and remember some things that were very hurtful and be able to deconstruct those and take out so much good information, right? Like, this is why I struggle with this, or this is why my temper is like this, or this is why I feel insecure about these things. It isn't because of me entirely, but it's because of what I've allowed other people to say about me. It's what I've allowed other people to put in my head and how to view myself. And since taking that leap of going from Austin to Brownsville, one of the, and this may be the point of the video, one of the main things that I learned, especially going from 29 into my 30s, was bet on yourself. I remember making a lot of money for a lot of businesses because of social media and still getting paid almost nothing, still barely making ends meet. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I know you guys are making a lot of money by the content I'm producing and the videos I'm making you and all this kind of stuff. I know I'm overworking myself. I know I'm stressing myself out, but you guys are making all the money. You guys are making all the currency, and I'm still trying. And that was one of the reasons I decided to also start my business, was because I knew that if I bet on myself and I didn't try to get a paycheck from somebody else, that I would try even harder for me, right? Because if it's all on my back, and if I'm the one that has to make sure that I'm getting paid, that food is being put on the table, then I'm not going to half-ass it. I'm going to go all the way in and make sure that I can figure out every single way to make that possible. And one of those ways was going from a videography business who was just giving people really great videos and great photos to being a video marketing agency, to building up campaigns for people, to building up strategies for people that is going to help them grow their business. And the more that their business grows, the more that our relationship becomes better. The more money they make, the more money we make. And that relationship is just very symbiotic. And these are things that I would never have realized. I would have never been in the position that I am today if it was not with that initial first step of saying, I don't like where I'm at anymore. I don't like the person I am. I don't like the place that I'm in. I don't like the person I've become. So why not change? Why not be something that I want to be? Why not take that first step and start changing? And so I did. And so now looking back 10 years from when I first moved to Austin, like I said, working as much as I was, spending maybe 1 or 2 hours a day with my then girlfriend, my now wife, I think to myself, like, I don't know what was driving that person. I know a lot of it was fear. I know a lot of it was insecurities. I know that a lot of it was anger, resentment, and regret. And now, what motivates me the most is my wife, my kids, my clients, my art. Again, I never thought I would ever be known for my artwork or for the things that I would produce or create. And to be someone who, we don't even go after clients. Clients come to us, people email us, people reach out to me on my Instagram. Like, we've only done ads maybe once or twice. And even then, we got too many people to where we haven't done it ever since. And so to me, that is surprising because when I was in Brownsville and when I was just working at Starbucks or at a liquor store or at a school, thinking to myself, like, well, this is it. This is all I'm going to do is just contribute to society because of my taxes. Now looking at the person I am now, and it's like, man, I get to contribute to society through my creativity, through the joy that I can bring in front of the camera, through the videos that I can curate for people to actually watch and feel something, right? Go to a property, go to a coffee shop, go to a resort, go to a restaurant, or like curate emotions for businesses that bring in people that is a perfect fit. I never thought I could do that. And now that I'm able to do it, and now that I'm able to hear these success stories from my clients, it makes me happy because I'm not basing this on monetary things, right? It's weird saying that because we do base it off monetary stuff. But what I mean is when I see a client going through hardship and I'm able to have a conversation with them one-on-one and help them not through the, hey, well, this is how we make you more money, but why is this fear controlling you? Why do you have these barriers? Why do you hold yourself back there? Because to me, that is as equally important as the videos and photos and content I made my client. Because if I give you all the videos and photos and I make your business great and you get all this money, but inside you're still going to be that insecure, breaking, sad, pathetic person, then what good is all these things? Like I said, I see people with all the money and all the stuff, but their heart is broken and they have no joy in life. Why would I want to give them things to not fill that hole when I could have a relationship with maybe 4, 5, 6 business owners throughout the year and not just help them in their business, but help them in their lives, help them become better people, help them invest in their health or in their knowledge or whatever it is, right, in their families. And to me, like I said, this is far more important than creating content, but it's fun that I get to do both at the same time, that I'm able to create content that helps their business, but I'm also to have conversations that's going to help them personally. And so for the next 40 days, I really just want to share with you guys, but also with myself, like these nuggets of gold that I've gained throughout the years that I feel to me are just basic things in life that everybody should know. But then when I interact with people, they think that this is like wisdom or whatever, right? And so, like I said, if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, right? If you're watching these in the 70s, that's dope. What are some things that have helped you progress in life? Like, what are some things that have helped you get out of that rut? Whether it is in your business, whether it is creatively, whether it is relational, like, what are some steps that you took to get you from point A to point B to point C, right? Because that's the other thing. It isn't just to get from, right? For me, it wasn't just, okay, I went from Brownsville to Austin. Now I can coast. This is what I wanted. It's once you get to the place you want to get to, it's a fight to stay there. It's a fight to be in that position day in and day out. 1, 2, when you get to that spot, you end up realizing, well, shoot, now I want to go higher. Well, I didn't think this was attainable, and now I'm here. So what does it look like over there? And what does it look like over there? And every time you grow, you go from one plateau to another to another. And so I know that I'm in the point in my life where there's going to be a lot of growth in the next few years. And I want to be ready for it. Again, not just financially, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. I want to make sure that the life that I live from 40 to 50 gets me ready for 80, 90, 100. Like, I would love to live to see my grandkids and my great grandkids and my great great grandkids, right? Like, to me, looking back at that person who was in Brownsville, who was miserable in life and who was unhappy, I don't know if I ever had joy for life back then, but now I do. And I know that if I want to keep this joy alive, if I want to continue to be not just a joyful person, but an optimistic person, it's going to take work. And I just can't rely all the things that I knew when I was 30, right? I got to build upon that knowledge. And so I hope that you guys comment and give me some gold that I can learn from and that I can, take away from this series as well. And I think today a really good takeaway is that whatever people have said about you, however people have tried to define you or hold you down, you need to realize that they're probably dealing with insecurities as well. And so what you need to do is bet on yourself, double down on who you are, figure you out before you figure anybody else out. And don't forget that the Sony FX2 is a much better camera than many, many people said it was going to be. And so whatever people say about you, you don't have to live up to their expectations. You prove yourself right. Give it all you got. Until next time. See you tomorrow.